It's showtime.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
You're not here, you missing out, because this show...
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, listen up. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast.
This is Santo, and you're watching the Alliance Guys podcast on YouTube.
This is the world famous cheeseburger, and you're watching the Alliance Guys podcast here on YouTube.
This is Bruno Bob Evans, and you're watching the Alliance Guys podcast on YouTube.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance and the United Wrestling Network. My name is Jay Cal. It is Thursday. Things are already falling apart. The rumors of my demise were a bit premature. I am here. I am alive. It's been a rough week, though. Oh, man. It's been a rough week. I'll tell you that, guys, and I apologize. I missed. And I don't normally miss, but I missed a pre-party because your boy Jay has had maybe the worst migraine possible, the worst migraine imaginable, the worst pain I've ever felt in my brain in my entire life. And I'm not saying this for hyperbole. Your boy was out. And I mean, I had to go to the hospital, not one time, but twice. They gave me a shot here. They put injections in my traps. They gave me another shot the next day. I had IV in my arm, man. It was insane. And I'm still actually feeling the effects of it. I'm still not 100%, but I'm on the mend. I'm on the mend. So I'm trying to be here, but I got to tell you, it's normally I come on here and it's all fun and games. And I'm telling you guys, I'm here because I love you. I'm here because I'm trying. I almost never miss work. I haven't been to work all week. They told me I can't go to the gym for a week. I still went to the gym, but I didn't go heavy, guys. No, Steve, it wasn't a tooth. It's some sort of migraine, a tension migraine headache. I went really hard on the gym on Tuesday of last week. I went really hard at the gym. You know, in life, there's a lot of stuff that we're stressing about: the business, the economy, what's going on in the world, and combine that with a couple of nights of not sleeping well and going really heavy at the gym, kind of put me out of commission. So what did I learn? Take it a little bit easy. So I won't be going as hard at the gym anymore, at least not until things get better. But they prescribed me some medication, and it's starting to feel a little bit better. I'm starting to see again. I'm starting to get back to it. So thank you guys for checking in on me. Thank you for those who asked about me. I'm okay. I'll be okay. It was scary. I'm not going to lie. I was a little worried. But everything's going to be fine. We're going to be joined in a little bit with DKM and Jaden. Of course, we'll have our regularly scheduled Alliance Guys podcast. They're just cleaning up a few things before they jump on, and they'll be joining us momentarily. Wild times indeed, though. It was like I said. I don't normally. I'm not the kind of guy that goes to the hospital a lot. I don't typically get too concerned about things. Like if I get a migraine, I get migraines quite a bit, but they normally last, a couple hours, maybe a day, 2 days max. This thing lasted literally. I woke up with it this morning, so that's 8 days. Not my favorite. No, not my favorite at all. Doesn't sound like Kevin is medically cleared to return to the ring. No, he's not. He might not make it to WrestleMania. And I will not be in Las Vegas this weekend. If you're looking for J Cal in Vegas this weekend, you're not going to find him. Not from a lack of invites. Thanks. Shouts out to Dad Nerd and and Soto and Jay Stone, all who offered me opportunities to skip out and come on down. But your boy Jay is just not going to make it this year. So I apologize to everyone in advance. And, maybe next year I'll fly to. I'm not going to Saudi. It's not going to happen next year either. But, again, appreciate you guys being concerned. I'm back. I'm alive. I'm mostly normal. And I said mostly, sir.
You've never been mostly normal.
I beg to differ. Wiccan says, wait till you turn my age and you turn the wrong way and you're at the chiropractor weekly. Yeah, I'm already there. That already happens.
Dude, I only have to think about sneezing to throw out my back.
Oh my God. I was last night. I was feeling pretty good. I was like, all right, maybe I'll be able to sleep tonight. And I sneezed and everything went black. And I'm sure I shouted out a few expletives. And I grabbed onto the sink. And I felt like I was going to go down. I was like, oh, dude, this is going to suck. My kids are staring at me. My wife is staring at me like, can't do it. Gotta stand up. Can't go down. Noob, as I'm explaining right now, I've had a pretty severe migraine and was just not able to do a pre-party. And I know it sounds like, oh, come on, Jay, it's just a headache. No, I couldn't even keep my eye open. I was like this. And I was under such intense pain. I as I said earlier, I went to the doctor twice, and I'm not the kind of guy that goes to the doctor for anything. I went twice. I received 2 shots over the course of 2 days. 3 injections into my trapezius, an IV treatment. I've been instructed to not go to the gym, to drink more water, to take it easy, tranquilo, guapo. But that's not easy for me. I don't take anything easy. So it's been.
It's true. You do make everything more difficult than it has to be.
Well, first of all, you're welcome. Second of all, I'm Irish. What do you want from me?
Money.
Well, I don't have that for you.
Well, don't feel special. I want money from everybody.
Real quick, Worship Unk on TikTok, you just sent me a 5 finger hearts. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We are streaming on YouTube, TikTok, and on Twitch. I appreciate the support, man. You help keep the show going. We pay for the software. We pay for the privilege to be able to talk to you guys. So when you guys support the live stream financially, it does help. And just by watching really does help. And if you guys ever want to support, but you can't financially, I completely understand. Just sharing the video, whether it be on YouTube or on Twitch or on TikTok, does help. It helps with the algorithm. You like and you comment on the videos. It really does help propel us. So I hope that explains it, Noob. It wasn't personal. I missed you guys. I think that's like maybe the 3rd time I've missed a pre-party due to illness in like 6 years. So I'm pretty proud about that. And I didn't have a chance to even have anyone come on because this is a new system. Oh, Jose said I can't say the other site. I have to say the purple site. Do I call the other site the red site, Jose? Help me out on that. I'm old and I don't understand these new customs. So how are you, DK? Have you been having a better week than I have?
Yes, in that I've never been on the point of death.
The brink of death.
It's been mostly a good week, but I've had the weirdest thing today. I got an earache out of nowhere.
Whoa.
And it's not a really severe one or anything like that, but it's just like I haven't had an earache, and that wasn't tied to like, oh, it's got a sinus infection or something like that. Just an ache in my ear. I haven't had something like that in a few years. Couple at least. Now, when I was a kid, I used to get ear infections all the time. And I was like, they always told me, they go, well, you don't really get them as adults. You don't really get ear infections as an adult. So apparently I didn't become an adult until like my late 40s.
I joined me too.
Because it was like, I would get ear, it slowed down. 20s were just like teenagers. That was my teenage years. I was getting ear infections, probably 2 a year. And then in my 30s, it kind of slowed down to, once a year, something like that. In my 40s, probably started at once a year and kind of slowed down to maybe every other year or whatever. But the last ear infection that I remember, I was 48. So that's been almost 10 years since I've had an ear infection. But I don't occasionally get earaches.
I don't remember the last time I had an ear infection, but like I said, I try to avoid going to the hospital, to the doctors as much as I can, which is probably not good medical advice. And I should probably consider changing that outlook on life. But it's this was a week, man. Since we have a minute, can I talk a little bit about the United Wrestling Network?
Never heard of it.
Oh, well, you're missing out. The United Wrestling Network, some weird reason, they decided to choose to run Gotham up against us over here at the Alliance Guys podcast. But right now, if you get bored listening to DK and I talk, you could always head over to the Memphis YouTube channel, and they are actually airing Gotham Wrestling. They've decided to now release those shows every Thursday at this time. So if you are a fan of Gotham Wrestling and want to watch it first thing, switch on over. We can watch us later. Or, because they're not going to interact with you, stay here and go watch their program later. Also, as a programming note, this Tuesday, after WrestleMania and all the other fun stuff that's happening out in Vegas this weekend, there will be another Championship Wrestling from Hollywood television taping at the Irvine Improv. I will be there. I will be taking photos and videos. And DK, there is a match that is happening there that I know you are going to want to watch. Now, first, the matchup that I want to see is this one right here. You've got the United Wrestling Network Tag Team Champions 5150 defending the tag titles against the Krusty Crew. Now, I'm almost positive we saw this match either late last year or earlier this year. It was a fun match the last time we saw it, and I know this is going to be a good one. Another match that I'm really looking forward to is Bad Dude Tito taking on Javi. Now, I didn't know who Javi was when I saw him the first time, but apparently Javi is a former WWE ID talent. He went through the Evolve program and did have a few matches on NXT and NXT Level Up. But he's been participating at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, starting to get over there with Championship Wrestling and that Irvine crowd, definitely. So he has a big test in front of him against Bad Dude Tito. The main event is a matchup that I'm sure a lot of people are interested in, and that's going to be Willie Mack challenging Jordan Cruz. A lot of talk about Willie Mack as of late, but he will be making his title defense he'll be challenging for the title against Jordan Cruz at Championship Wrestling this Tuesday, the 21st. But the match that I think you're going to be most excited about, DK, is a rematch from Sunday Night Slam, and that's going to be Maximilian versus Royce Isaacs.
Interesting, very, very interesting.
And that's a rematch from the last Sunday Night Slam. So I know you were giving that one some pretty high praise. So I think you'll enjoy that one. And then Polar Marky says, I love watching Championship Wrestling. It really is. To me, it's one of the easiest watches in pro wrestling right now because it's literally an hour. You watch it. You don't have to put too much thought into it. There's not a lot of convoluted storylines. It's mostly just matches with a little bit of storyline to kind of keep you hooked. But I always enjoy Championship Wrestling, and I have for many, many years. And then, of course, the next big event for United Wrestling Network, they're working towards the Red Carpet Rumble. I believe that date will be in June. either June or July. That's going to be at the Thunder Studios. But before that, there's also another Sunday Night Slam event happening in May. And of course, you'll be able to watch that right here on our YouTube channel at the Alliance Blog.
Do they still
plug
Percy Pringle Cup?
I don't remember the last time that they ran the Percy Pringle Cup, but I still think it exists. The PP3 Cup.
Tell you the honest truth, I hadn't followed closely enough that even the Red Carpet Rumble was kind of like, we still do that? that's what made me think about the Pringle Cup. It's like, I didn't know they did that or the cup.
I always thought Pringles came in a can.
Good point.
Pringle comes wherever you want them to.
Those are crumbs, and they don't go anywhere you want them to.
Jose asked, is that Slice Boogie, who is very popular on the independent wrestling shows? Yeah, Slice Boogie teams with Danny Limelight as the 5150. They are the United Wrestling Network World Tag Team Champions, or two-time Tag Team Champions, actually. And they have defended those titles. With the first run that they had with them, they held them as the Bodega. They wrestled in Puerto Rico. They wrestled in Atlanta. They wrestled in... I want to say they defended the titles or at least showed up with the titles at MLW. They showed up with the titles down at the Crash, and they regained those titles earlier, I guess late last year. Everything's starting to blend together, and they've been on a run again. So yeah, 5150 United Wrestling Network World Tag Team Champions should have been a part of the Crockett Cup. So, and speaking of tag teams, which is a fun segue. The report, the title of this show was called Tag Team Wraslin, and that was for a reason, because we were talking offline most recently, Jaden, DK, and myself, about the state of tag team wrestling as it pertains to the National Wrestling Alliance. Now, there are several territories with their own tag team titles. Joe Kazana Promotion has the Southeast Tag Team Championship. Chicago has their tag team champions. New Mexico has theirs. I do believe NWA Texas has a unified tag team championship down there. And even Exodus Pro, when it was part of the NWA, had their own tag team titles. All of this to say that there's several territories that have their own tag team titles. And on Power, there's two sets of tag team titles that are represented, that are defended every month, which is the World Tag Team titles and the United States tag team titles. They even have women's tag team titles. What I'm saying is tag team wrestling seems to be very important to the National Wrestling Alliance. They even have an annual tag team tournament called the Crockett Cup that's currently underway. But as we discussed, there's not a lot of legitimate tag teams in the National Wrestling Alliance. And I hate to steal your line, Jaden, but it feels like every week people are fighting to get on air, and it seems like there's always someone that's being missed. But when you look at that roster for the NWA, it is not a deep roster. And so kind of the conversation that we're going to start off with this week is, besides my medical issues, is we're going to talk about the NWA's tag team division. And, DKM, you're the one that kind of brought this topic up. Of course, we have the Crockett Cup is currently underway, and we've had a couple of makeshift tag teams advance in the Cup. We have a couple of well-established tag teams who have advanced. But, as we look at the Crockett Cup, it was filled with tag teams like Kratos and Odinson, your NWA World Tag Team Champions, the Carson Drake and Drake and Stevens, as it was mysteriously named. You have the Southern Six, the NWA Chicago Tag Team Champions, the Hard Way. Pretty Boy Smooth and Hayden Backlund worked as a tag team in this tournament. The Wrestling Machines, I don't want to call them a makeshift tag team because they've been teaming since the last Crockett Cup, but that's Spencer Slade and Mike Mondo. The Colognes returned to the NWA for the Crockett Cup. You've got Red, White, and Jacked. You have Murdoch and Frank, which is probably one of the worst makeshift tag teams in the NWA. The Country Gentlemen, Pope and Mims, the U.S. Tag Team Champions, the Slime Balls, the Soul Bones, which was another makeshift tag team, and of course, former IWGP Tag Team Champions, former WWE Tag Team Champions, former TNA Tag Team Champions, in the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson. So there's been, we've seen a lot of good tag teams in the NWA as of late, but predominantly there's not a lot of solid tag teams day in and day out of the National Wrestling Alliance. And this was the discussion we were having. So DK, I mean, what is the NWA? Why do you think they have so many titles and not enough tag teams to fill them, or at least make it competitive? DK? Jaden? Somebody?
Hello.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't really know outside of on the women's, like you said. We think they just created that title to create that title for Empowered, and without a real plan on what to do with them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like they've ever had a real plan since. Although they have had some good tag teams hold it. I don't know. Kind of the U.S. tag team title is the one that's always confused me why he felt the need to bring that back. He barely had enough teams for a world tag team title, let alone a U.S. tag team. Now, normally you go over on different levels, and there'd be different levels of challengers, but there's just not enough. Billy in general, not just tag teams, but his entire promotion doesn't really have that big of a regular roster. And we're talking about that, like, why do the former champions have a tendency to leave? Well, it's not really anything for them to do once you've lost the title and it's not going to go back on you. I mean, I think Murdoch stayed around because Murdoch didn't do anything else. He wasn't looking to go anywhere. He wasn't looking to, break big or tell his story or whatever. And so, but the tag team thing, I have no idea why they created the U.S. Tag Team Championship other than Billy and like his former partner Dave Lagana apparently likes titles.
It was one of those things where and it was kind of funny because Lagana kind of mocked the fans for why do you want so many titles? What do you need so many titles for? And then the minute he's out of the picture, it's like, you get a title and you get a title and everyone gets a title. It got pretty silly with the amount of titles that they decided to bring into the NWA. But, there was a point in time when there was some pretty, there was a little bit more competitive tag team division in the NWA, but that time has seemingly come and gone. You look up and down the roster, the Pope and Mims, not a regular tag team. Of course, Mike Knox is injured. That's understandable. Him and Trevor haven't been able to team like they normally would. El Dragon Nihon and Tom Latimer, not a normal tag team. Aaron Stevens and Drake, not a normal tag team. And up and down the roster, there's a lot of non-regular tag teams. And then of course, bringing in the Good Brothers, they're not regular NWA power regulars. Well, I mean, I say that, right? And then now they have been appearing on the last several shows, and maybe that's changed. We don't normally have the clones week in and week out. And like Jaden, you said that everyone's fighting for camera time, but it doesn't really feel like that roster's so big. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, they have all these time for skits, all these times for segments, all these time for bad interviews, all these times for shenanigans and stuff that doesn't draw money. But they don't have enough time to actually put everybody on TV. And it's part of the problem is the way they tape the scheduled taping is they just kind of have to throw people out there and mix. We get some people this week and then a whole new group of people next week. Instead of maybe these segments, they don't always have to have matches, but we could use a few more matches and maybe some actual interviews with people that aren't on wrestling on the card. Something to make it feel like the roster's bigger and not just a waste of time with tattoo segments and creepy psychologist segments and all the other stuff that's out there. If you could actually spend this time to make it look the illusion that this roster is on there every week and somebody is there doing something other than just wasting time with stuff that doesn't make money, then you could at least create the illusion they have a bigger roster and these people have TV time to be able to get themselves over. The format, if they're going to do this studio taping, there's a couple that they could steal from. They could steal from Memphis. They could steal from Georgia. They could steal from Jim Crockett Promotions. They could at least create the idea that these roster, because honestly, people think the NWA has always had a great tag team roster. But if you go to Jim Crockett Promotions, the thing that everybody considers the NWA, even though it's just a part of it, they only had like 3 real tag teams. They had the Midnight Express, they had the Rock and Roll Express, they had the Road Warriors. They had people visit in and out, but a lot of those tag teams were makeshift tag teams. Tully and Arn really kind of was a makeshift tag team. Raging Bull and Manny Fernandez and Rick Rude was kind of a makeshift tag team. The Superpowers were kind of a makeshift tag team. Barry Windham and Ron Garvin, or Ron Garvin and Jimmy Garvin, were kind of makeshift tag teams. They had like the Fantastic show up every once in a while, or the Lightning Express, but the majority of their tag teams were the Cruel Connection, or the Thunderfoots, or something on that. The roster itself did not have a lot of tag teams, but you felt like they did, and that's because they were there. They were focused. Attention was put on them. They were wrestling. They were talked about. One of the things I always say is it should happen with tag team, just like the junior heavyweight, just like the women's, just like the world heavyweight. If you're on that roster and you're not wrestling, then you should be talking about it. If you're a world heavyweight title contender, you should say, hey, I'm Carson Drake and I'm feuding with, Brian Idol, but my real goal is the world heavyweight champion Silas Mason. And hi, I'm Tom Latimer, and I'm feuding with El Dragon Nihon. But my real goal is I'm coming after you, Silas Mason. I'm coming after you, Thrill Billy. And that's the same thing for the tag teams. If they can create the illusion that, hey, this is the Slime Balls, and we're feuding with Jack and Eddie. But you know what? We're the U.S. Tag Team Champs, but we're stopping them. They're going after the World Tag Team titles. So they have to create this illusion, at least of something. So then each championship means something. And the reason they have these championships, in case you're wondering why there's so many of them, is because somebody does not understand. They think that putting a belt on somebody is pushing somebody. And they don't understand that that's not. All it is, a championship only means something if you make it mean something. If everybody on the roster makes it mean something. They had the U.S. tag titles in Jim Crockett Promotions, and you know who made it mean something? The Midnight Express, the Fantastics. Anybody was on there. Ivan and Nikita Koloff, or Crusher Kuzev and Ivan Koloff, or Ivan Koloff and Dick Murdoch. Anybody, they made those championships feel like something because they were going after it. And once they no longer did that, those championships were eventually just extras not needed, and they were eventually taken away. And that's what the NWA needs, is a focus. Maybe get rid of some of these championships, because again, putting a belt on somebody is not the same as pushing them. So many horrible people who don't understand wrestling think that. Fans often think that, oh, he's got a belt. Guess what? It doesn't mean shit if the belt doesn't mean shit. Diatribe over.
I mean, that's pretty damning. Our pal Chris Henry says between Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling and Capital, I don't know what CWG is, so forgive me, the UWF, the CWF, and the
Central States.
Yeah, Central State. Well, I knew that one. And, of course, Jim Crockett, they had a shit ton of titles in and out from 85 to 88. And, yeah, but you know what they also had back in 85 and 88? Like 3 programs of television and local television in every one of those markets. And they had a huge roster of tag teams. Maybe not like regular tag teams like Jaden alluded to, like maybe some of them were thrown together, but you had a lot of wrestling. And we know what you have today with the NWA. It's a part-time wrestling promotion. And I hate to say it, guys, because it really does pain me to say that. I've been a big fan. Oh, Championship Wrestling from Georgia. Thanks, Chris. I'm a big proponent of the NWA, and I have been for many, many years. But let's be realistic. What we're talking about when we talk about the NWA is a part-time wrestling promotion. They will film probably 8 to 9 events this year. That's less than one a month. And you can't tell me you're a full-time wrestling promotion if you do 8 to 9 events. You just can't. The WWE does like 8 to 9 events in like a month. And that's pulling the reins way back from what they used to do. You know, AEW does like 2 shows a week, every week. That's a full-time wrestling promotion. TNA, I think they film some of their stuff in advance, but they do a lot more than, 8 to 9 shows a month. They're filming monthly. Even Championship Wrestling from Hollywood is filming more frequently than the NWA at this point. So I can't subscribe to the fact that it's the same, because it's not. There shouldn't be that many titles for as few tag teams. And again, when you realistically look at the NWA right now, there are some talented tag teams. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we see the hard way. They are your NWA Chicago tag team titles. Absolutely, those guys belong on Power, and I'm totally good with them representing the state of Chicago as the tag team champions. But excuse me, I said the state of Chicago, the city of Chicago. But do we really need a Chicago-based tag team title? When, I mean, you have the U.S. tag team titles, which are supposed to be, a step below the world tag team titles, but supposed to be a step above the territory titles. Well, why can't you have the U.S. tag team champions wrestle all over the territories? At least that would make those titles seem more valuable. I mean, Jaden, DK, do you guys disagree on that one?
I disagree because of logistics.
Okay.
You would have to bring in 2 guys, fly in the slime balls to Chicago, to Tennessee, to Texas, to Arizona, and have them defended everywhere. And logistically, 2 guys, that means you're also putting on 2 other guys on your roster. Here's where the local championships matter, is they should be your regular championship. And then you bring in these guys sporadically as big deals. You bring in the US tag titles, maybe a little bit more, but you bring in the world tag team champions, big deals, and eventually build to it. The thing is, it doesn't necessarily need to be on Power. You know why? There was one time where there was the Florida tag team titles, the US, the Florida championships, the UWF championships, and the Mid-Atlantic, the NWA Jim Crockett Promotion championships at the same time. But each one also had its own television show. Florida had its own television show, and they had their own roster and were wrestling a lot more in Florida. They would just bring in Jim Crockett Promotion wrestlers to fill out the card. The UWF had a touring schedule, and they would bring in the UWF wrestlers to tour out the card. And at least those championships felt like they were something. None of the, except for the Big Gold, none of the NWA championships really feel like they mean anything. Not the women's, not the tag team, not the US tag team, not the women's tag team, not the women's television, not the world television, not the national, as much as I love Mondo. But the only championship that feels like anything is the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, and it's more nostalgia than it actually is what's currently going on. I love Silas Mason as champion, but I don't think the NWA and Silas has taken advantage of that as much as you can. He's wrestling in the territories, which is great. He's traveling around in the territories, which is great. But he needs some big, high-profile stuff, both in the NWA, both on Power, and both on other promotions to get his name out there. I'm going to say it, Carson Drake or Brian Idol or half the roster that he's wrestled against so far hasn't meant anything. Mike Cardona meant something. Latimer meant something. And in all honesty, that's the only championship matches he's had that really mean anything to what he has. And he doesn't have EC3 anymore. He doesn't have Trevor Murdoch anymore. Maybe he has Hammerstone, but he already beat him beforehand. If they never wrestled before and now it's a fresh matchup, it could have mean a lot more. So he doesn't have it, and that's the problem right now. Is they need to make everything feel like it, and they stop putting on. It's fine. They have the Texas tag team champions and the Chicago tag team champions. Those ugly ass belts that look like platters you just serve a charcuterie on. But it just, they need to focus, get rid of some of the championships they have and focus on the ones that matter, and make every one of them matter. Again, the same way that I said it before, use that TV time to actually make things important and not waste the time on creepy skits.
Yeah. And DK, I want you to chime in, but real quick, I want to go to the comment section too. Our friend Jaden Archives Books Chronicle Diaries, says the NWA only matters to people who care about the history of wrestling. Fortunately or unfortunately, I have been around for most of the history of the NWA, so it does for me. And I think there's some truth to that too. I mean, we've talked to recently Dave Marquez posted on Facebook about wrestling is kind of trapped in this what I can't remember how he phrased it, but basically
it's been eating the member berries, in case you're
yeah, there you go, perfectly. Member berries, like we all have this.
You remember Jim Crockett Promotions?
You have this big heart for nostalgia, and and wrestling has evolved past what the NWA was and what the NWA currently is. Now, that doesn't mean that there can't be success with it, but I think if you're operating with the mindset that if we do what they did in 1986, people will tune in again, I don't think that's the case. Now, DK, I've kind of jumped around a little bit, but give me your hot take on tag team wrestling in the NWA currently.
Well, there is no hot take because there's nothing hot about it. Look, they don't need U.S. tag team titles. But if you're going to have U.S. tag team titles, then that should be the title for Power. But here's the problem. The reason they don't need it, now the territories having their own tag team titles is perfectly fine. The reason they don't need it is because they don't want anything other than tapings. I mean, they do the occasional show in New York or wherever where they run with that other group, but that other group runs them, I guess, basically. I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head. But, this isn't the days of Jim Crockett where there were 3 different house show circuits.
Yeah.
Dusty used to put the world title in the big cities and the world tag team titles in the medium cities.
Which sometimes were their biggest draws.
Yes. And yeah, sometimes they outdrew Dusty, which he never liked, but hey. And so I was thinking the other day, do you realize that, of course, during its biggest heydays, the WWE had 3 titles with an occasional women's title thrown in.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
The world, the Intercontinental, and the tag team.
Right. And then they would occasionally bring back the World Women's title long enough to forget.
Well, never forget about it.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, think about WrestleMania 2. I think WrestleMania 2 had. Not WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 1. WrestleMania 1 had 2 title matches. And I can't even tell you what the Intercontinental title match was. Because they didn't even have the world title on it. Tag team titles saw Sheik and Volkov winning the press. Tag team and so I don't know, man. It's just you're talking about the nostalgia or people remembering, back when or something like that. What worked today? When did it work today? I don't know, nobody has actually tried doing that, despite what everybody claims. But again, it was a different era in a different time in that you had the shows and you went out and you did something. Your TV shows were infomercials for your live shows. And the NWA, especially since it started making their signature live events episodes, I've said it before, I'll say it again, they don't have an identity. Who is their...
Eyeball.
Yo, Holmes.
Yo, Holmes.
Who is their, what is their identity? And, strip yourself down to the 3 basic titles, or 4.
I can see 4. I can see 4 being something. Go ahead, WDK.
Yeah, basically your world tag team, your women's, and then I'll keep the TV title. Retire the national, retire the U.S. tag team, retire the women's tag team.
Retire the junior heavyweight.
Retire the junior heavyweight for now. And, focus. Get your focus. Get your build-up. Jay, you asked the question earlier offline, are there any indies out there? And like you said, not necessarily your Richard Holidays or your, I can't remember the other game, but because they're kind of somewhat bigger than the NWA itself. And, the question becomes, who's out there that can be a future NWA champion that when you look at it, you go, yeah, this is somebody who we can take the time and we can build and, they could be a future champion. We saw that in Thrill Boy. And the NWA, and I'll end with this thought because I want to get Jaden's reaction to it. The NWA still has a prestigious world title, but they don't have a prestigious promotion.
I'm going to speak now.
What do you think about that?
He's not wrong. And here's the problem. There are promoters out there that think the NWA name is worthless now, that it doesn't mean anything, that it's just about the older people. The NWA name will still, and probably always, as long as it's got something going for it, be able to get some kind of publicity. The websites, the websites don't necessarily cover championship wrestling or the United Wrestling Network. The websites don't necessarily cover Dog, and Dog sends it to every one of them. The websites don't necessarily carry IHWA. They do cover, though, Game Changer Wrestling.
Yeah.
But like the big indies that are out there, the ones that have some even TV, I rarely even see any coverage of MLW. But I always see something with the NWA, and maybe it's just my algorithm. But I always see them mention the NWA. The NWA has the ability, because people want to still believe in it, it'll still get some kind of attention. It always has detractors too. Gets a lot of detractors. Again, there's a lot more people talking negatively about the NWA than talking positively about most of the other promotions that are out there. So the NWA name still can be used as a foundation. But right now, the problem is there's no foundation, there's no floor, there's not even a basement. There's just a big black hole that the NWA is just kind of floating on top of, narrowly being held on by a piece of twine or floss or something. The NWA name needs to be used as a foundation to build to something. And right now, it's just a vanity project for Billy Corgan to spend a few bucks on, so he can say that he's a wrestling promoter instead of actually trying to make the most of the talent. And the talent's smart. So it's like Reckin Moligursky took the NWA, what he got from it, and made it so he can go work on the indies.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of wrestlers who do such a thing. Spencer Slade's another one. I see his name out there a lot, wrestling in the Northeast. And he's really using the NWA name. But the NWA itself doesn't use its talent to make the NWA the best it could possibly be. Everybody who watches the NWA says there's some good talent there.
Yeah.
And there's some potential there. And there's guys that deserve to be in bigger places. But the NWA doesn't take advantage of that. The bookers, the promoters. And then so there's a negative reputation. I got friends in Florida that tell me that nobody in Florida really wants to work that much for the NWA because how they treat the people that aren't their favorites. They come in for the talent and they're not treated well. Anybody on there, they don't pay well and they don't treat well. So right now, what is the NWA? It's just a Billy Corgan vanity project. That's all it is. It's the Timo Wish version of AEW. Anybody disagree?
No, disagree. Yeah, because I feel like I don't even feel like they're that. I don't feel like they're even in the same. You could call the United Wrestling Network the Temu version of AEW, and I think that would be a little bit more appropriate.
I don't, because they're at least trying to be their own identity, and I don't see. I'm not. You know what? I'm not the biggest championship wrestling fan. I like some of it. Some of it I don't like, but it feels too produced. And I know Dave is probably going to take that as a compliment, but it never feels like it's a. It feels like a Hollywood version of a TV of what TV thinks wrestling is instead of wrestling. But we're trying to create its own identity. It doesn't just all of a sudden put championships, and it's not about the ego and the vanity of David Marquez. He might have an ego. He might be very vain. I don't know. I mean, it's possible. You can't get in wrestling, be something in wrestling without it. But that's not about David Marquez. It's about the brand. I don't feel the NWA is about the brand. I feel it's about somebody who wants to have a bunch of toys and play with them, but doesn't have the cool collector ability like the other big promoter with all the money who's able to get all the cool toys.
I mean, again, there's something to that.
Well, real quick, what was the term you said that Dave Marquez used the other day? Remember something or
remember berries?
Yeah. And so what was that? Of course you would do. No.
Who disagreed? I didn't say.
He said he disagrees that the NWA is a vanity project of Billy Corgan.
Oh, millennial.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, what was the concept behind it? I heard you guys explaining it earlier.
Just
I can't spit it out of my mouth.
So the NWA is nostalgia. Wrestling fans are kind of stuck in nostalgia, and so like we like. And this isn't just the NWA fans. This is wrestling fans across the board. That's why other people still go to the conventions to see the old timers, right? Because wrestling is still infatuated with yesteryear. And it doesn't matter if it's your yesteryear, which could have been the 2000s, or if your yesteryear was 1986, or if your yesteryear was in the 50s. Wrestling fans tend to hold on to the nostalgia of the sport. And things were better when I grew up watching wrestling, and I feel like Dave Marquez pointed that out recently. And it's kind of funny. A lot of people jumped on there to defend that and just further improving his point. As wrestling fans, we all kind of like we're still stuck on what we grew up with, what we liked. There's very little evolution outside of that.
I understand that concept.
Okay.
Because it's true in music.
Doing everything, movies, television, comic books,
right?
Cereal.
I remember specifically one of my college teachers telling us, they go, you guys are still young, because we were like 18, 19 freshmen. He goes, but for everybody, there will be a day that music dies. He goes, we just
and then we're singing my. I'm sorry.
But, or basically you just don't want to listen to the new stuff. Your stuff is there. And it's true. We all hit that. We all, one day we find out that the songs we like are being played in the on the classic stations, and we're going, hey, wait a minute. And I mean, I could not tell you any number one hits since 2000. And that's fine. And so he's right in the point that wrestling tends to be, honestly, we tend to become fans of wrestling young. And so we kind of grow up. And I think that's one of the reasons I remember hearing a long time ago, it's probably still true, that the average casual wrestling fan is only a casual wrestling fan for 3 or 4 years. And, I've talked to guys like where I used to work and everything, and, that you would ask them something about wrestling, and they'd all go, oh, yeah, The Rock, Steve Austin,
Yeah.
Because that's when they watched, and they don't watch today, and they're not interested today. It's not one of the things that he was talking about. They watched, it was the fad, they moved on. It's just not that important in their lives. They haven't kept up. And so, but the point I'm trying to make is that if we're getting caught in nostalgia, part of the problem is you're not doing anything today to get me past it. You're failing to meet a need I have in entertainment. And so, I mean, surely there's something you could do that, would get older fans and younger fans and everything. But what happens is, especially because of TV, you want those younger guys in your ratings group. I think they're willing to alienate the people and let them want the nostalgia by doing that, instead of saying, hey, let's try to keep everybody in this. And so if guys are stuck in nostalgia, it's because you're not feeding them.
I mean, I think that's a huge conversation that I'm not prepared to get into tonight. But Jaden, if you want to throw your 2 cents in real quick, you can.
I grew up on Star Wars Episode 4, 5, and 6, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. I liked kind of episodes 1, 2, and 3. But there are a lot of people now that episodes 1, 2, and 3 is their Star Wars. It's their favorite Star Wars. Yeah. And they could watch the old stuff, but it's not as good as episodes 1, 2, and 3. And there's going to be people in the future that are going to see 7, 8, and 9 and think that is their Star Wars. That was their stuff. And 1, 2, and 3 is fine. And then 4, 5, and 6 is too old fashioned and not good enough. A lot of people like Star Trek. I grew up on the original series, but I remember when The Next Generation was not my Star Trek. I remember when Deep Space Nine, this isn't Star Trek, there's not a ship. I remember when Voyager it sucks, and it kind of did. But
I was going to say, let's be honest now, Voyager did suck.
Yeah, there were some moments. They had some good moments, but it wasn't. The concept wasn't done well. Good concept, bad execution.
Sure.
But yeah, that's just it right now. People have their thing, what they grow up, and it's the same with wrestling. A lot of modern wrestling is a direct descendant of Vince McMahon's goofy sports entertainment.
Yeah.
People grew up, and that's their wrestling, and they took it to the next logical level. But the problem is, it's real hard for modern audiences to modern companies to be able to get everybody on board. Now, I'm an old school comic book fan. I'm loving the new Daredevil series.
Yes.
I didn't think I had to watch Power this morning, so when I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I finally watched the Thunderbolts, and I liked that movie a lot.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I enjoyed that movie a lot. There's stuff out there that could still scratch my itch of what I like, but it's fewer and far between because it's not meant to. Every once in a while, you just got somebody who's really good at their job, and they can make me care. I'm loving the new Maul series on Disney Plus. And I like the Clone Wars, especially after like the animation got better and the stories got better. Even though again the first season had some diamonds in the rough, or zirconium in the rough, to steal Dr. Z's line. And I liked Rebels. It was good, and I liked Bad Batch and all that stuff. But I'm really liking this Darth Maul series. It's just it's scratching a niche. But there's a lot of stuff out there in Star Wars I just didn't like. I wanted to like the Acolyte so much, and it wasn't right. I wanted to like Obi-Wan so much, and it was okay. I wanted to like, what else was out there? I wanted to like it, but it didn't really have that problem. And there needs to be a quality control and somebody who's really understands the direction it needs to be, where both the old and the new can meet together and have something special. I'm going to toot Dr. Zirconium's horn. Dog is an old school pro wrestling promotion, but we wrestle in colleges with a very young audience. We wrestle in universities with very young audiences. We wrestle in comic book conventions and sci-fi conventions and anything else we can get ourselves into. We can take the old and put a little fresh graphics on it, a little fresh paint, a little modern glitz and glamour, and the fans can love it. But they don't realize they're watching old school because they mostly didn't see it. So you use the lights and the showmanship and the histrionics to get them to pay attention, and then you give them just good quality stuff, they're going to care. And that's the problem, is very few people have the ability to mix it together. And I know even Dog fails sometimes. Not everything hits, but they're always trying something to find what hits for something, so at least something for everybody. And the NWA, what's the NWA doing right now that's in any description or any, what's Star Trek doing right now that's any description with that? Strange New World. That's it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Our pal Chris says, I think the NWA needs to lean into the nostalgia of the NWA itself more, if anything. I worry Corgan is too nostalgic for the Attitude Era of WWF. And that's the other part too, again, because William Patrick Corgan is an anomaly. Like, he is very much a mixed bag, because what he says and what he does are not always entirely the same thing. And, point in case, at the Crockett Cup in 2019, he had a panel with James E. Cornette, and they were talking about wrestling in general and what Billy Corgan's vision for the NWA was. At least he had mentioned, like, look, he grew up on, the World Wrestling Alliance, the WWA, from the Midwest, and also the AWA. That's what he grew up on. But I don't see that style of wrestling implemented in the NWA currently. And we've joked about this in the past. I almost feel like Billy Corgan should have bought Wrestling Society X. I feel like that would have been a better fit for him than the NWA, because in the NWA at its core is a nostalgia brand. It is a legacy brand, as what Dave Lagana used to say. And, absolutely, you could pull to the ties. You could pull to that nostalgia, and it would be okay, because, again, we're talking about a wrestling company that was founded in 1948 with new ownership over the past 3 decades. But with that being said, every decade or the last 3 decades, there's been new ownership. But it doesn't, to me, it's the challenging point is what Billy Corgan's vision isn't leaning into the nostalgia. This isn't Jim Crockett Promotions NWA. This isn't any NWA that I've seen before. It's not even TNA wrestling. It's something in and of itself. The skits, the weird, why are they hanging out at a tattoo parlor? Why is that necessary content? Why all of a sudden, when there's been no correlation before, are Tiffany Nieves and Thrillbilly Silas Mason now seemingly connected at the hip? Why do we keep getting segments of a a world famous author and psychiatrist and therapist. Why is he why do we care about his journey in his relationship, his failed relationship with Tiffany Nieves? Like, all of this is soap opera drama bullshit. This isn't pro wrestling as you grew up with, Jaden, or what I grew up with, or even what Billy Corgan claims he grew up watching. This is not that. And so when we talk about leaning into the nostalgia, yeah, I agree that the NWA, more than any other wrestling promotion, maybe the WWE, should definitely lean into the nostalgia. It should lean into that rich and deep history. Now, you also have to remember, too, it gets a little bit difficult for Billy Corgan because he doesn't own the footage of Ric Flair with the 10 pounds of gold. He doesn't own the footage of, the Road Warriors winning the NWA World Tag Team titles. He doesn't have the footage of Dan the Beast Severin, wrestling Shinya Hashimoto for the 10 pounds of gold. He doesn't have any footage except for what started in 2017. And even that's questionable what footage he owns, because as soon as Dave Lagana left the NWA, we lost the 10 pounds of gold series. That's nowhere to be found on the internet. And they've failed to recreate that magic since Lagana's been gone. And even when you look at the pay-per-views that they did, the first pay-per-view, the NWA 70th anniversary show, was produced by Jeff Jarrett's Global Wrestling Federation. It was not produced by the NWA. And the Crockett Cup, the 2019 Crockett Cup, was not produced by the NWA. It's produced by Ring of Honor. That's owned by not Sinclair. That's owned by Tony Khan. And the biggest NWA World Title match in 2019 or 2018 was with Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis, and that footage is owned by Tony Khan. So it's very like, well, what does Billy Corgan actually own? I believe he owns the Power library. I think that's his, mostly. I don't know what percentage or ownership of the video that Dave Lagana may or may not have had, but remember, once Lagana left, all that footage disappeared. So I don't know if he claimed some sort of creator ownership over that material. I don't know, but that all disappeared. We don't see that on, it's not available on YouTube. You can't go into the YouTube vaults and check it out. You can't go to, Wrestling Central and watch it there. They're showing stuff from, post COVID. You can't go and find that NWA library before Dave Lagana left. So again, what does even Billy own? And then all of this really comes back to the point of, what does Billy Corgan even envision the NWA? Is it a TV show, or is it a wrestling promotion, or is it what vessel is this for Billy Corgan? And until someone can identify that for me, shoot, I don't even know what the NWA is. And I don't even know if Billy knows what the NWA is.
Well, I'm sure it's somewhere on the 20-year plan.
Well, yeah, but look, and I've said this so many times, so I don't want to get too much into it, but if the NWA was a wrestling promotion, then we wouldn't be 10 weeks behind on television, right? As soon as it gets filmed, it would be right on TV. That's the way it should be. You look at what Dave Marquez does. His and again, Dave Marquez doesn't tour either. He has 3 locations that they film at. Technically 4, I guess. They have Gotham, which films in West Nyack, New York, which is a separate program from Championship Wrestling. That films in 2 locations, one in Oxnard and one in Irvine, both comedy clubs. And then Sunday Night Slam films at the Thunder Studios in Long Beach. And then Memphis films at the Wrestle Center in Memphis. So that's the only place you could see those shows. If the NWA tomorrow said, hey, look, we're not going to air our pay-per-views anymore. We're not going to air our signature live events. We're going to have them, but if you want to be there, you got to be there to see it. And went to a strictly, our TV tapings are in Tampa every, the first Tuesday of the month, or whatever day it is, first Saturday of the month. We're going to do back-to-back tapings, and then you'll see it on TV. That would be more, to me, that would make more sense than what they're doing now.
real quick. Yo, Rick.
It's my guy right there. A couple more weeks and he'll be back on the show.
Better.
Assuming any of us could watch Power.
Say that again.
Assuming any of us could watch Power.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think. Look, and that's another question that we have to get answers for at some point. But I'm sure there will be a way for us to find it. I'm sure that we can figure out something. Dave Scooby says something interesting. He says NWA needs to use old school rules with new school tools. I mean, yep.
Dave Scooby, I miss you, buddy.
Yeah, Dave.
He's on every social media, but doesn't answer any of them.
You know, and Dave, and I meant to ask you this, and I was looking for it. I didn't have a pre-party this week, but I was looking for the new theme that you set up for me, and I couldn't find it. And I was like, "Is that Facebook? Was that Instagram? Where did you send it to me?" So I gotta bother you later for that, because I looked on Instagram on both the Alliance blog and my personal one, and I didn't see it. Chris Henry said they did run a marathon of season 1 on Power on YouTube around the time Power shifted to Roku, but it was edited in spots and not just the removal of Token. Yeah, I don't, Chris. I think you're right. I do remember that, but again, where has it been since? They is that available to watch now? Could we still go back and watch it? You know, if I film something live right now, the Alliance Guys podcast, we're filming this live. You can go back and watch every single episode we've done of the Alliance Guys podcast right here on YouTube. Yeah, there's literally a playlist. You just go to the Alliance Guys podcast and you can see literally, the first ones that we used to do where we recorded it and I edited very poorly. It wasn't recorded live. And there was an episode where DK and Jaden both quit. And we had Kevin Douglas as my co-host. And then Kevin quit and Jaden and DK came back. I mean, the show has definitely evolved over the years, but you can see it all. You can't go back and watch all of the NWA stuff. At least
it's easier to find. Sorry, Jay, I thought you were done.
No, I'm done.
It's easier to find the Star Wars Christmas special than it is some of the old NWA stuff.
Hey, I have that.
Real quick, I want to go to our friend Archives Books says over on TikTok. I can't post it on the screen, but I'll read it. I don't disagree with anything that you guys have said, but I do think that Billy is doing his best. Billy is a professional musician who is a wrestling fan who became an owner instead of a vet worker. Who do you guys think made more of an impact, the NWA, Power, or OVW on Netflix? Whew.
I bet you the OVW on Netflix was seen by more people.
I would argue that first season of Power was very electric. And I don't think that OVW was seen by more people than the first season of Power on YouTube. But we could, the thing is we used to be able to see the views and we used to know the analytic a little bit. We could see 50,000 people watched the first episode. A couple weeks later, it was up to 120. That first season of Power was being watched by the industry. You had people like The Rock congratulating Jim Cornette on it, who, yes, he was a part of it, but he was also a small part of that wheel. They did have some success. But I feel like it's all gone downhill since then. And I don't think they've been able to get back to that point. And not for nothing, I talked to a former NWA talent recently. I was at a wrestling show where this person happened to be, and I'm not going to mention any names, but he was telling me some ideas that he had on this current version of the NWA. And he some of the things that he pointed out, I don't think I necessarily noticed until he pointed it out, but specifically, where do they film at? Tampa. When they're doing their live shows or when they're doing their TV tapings, it's in Billy Corgan's best financial interest to find talent who could get to Tampa on the cheapest, right? Think about it. And we've seen an influx of talent from Florida on these tapings, which, most of it I don't have a problem with. Like even this week's episode, Richard Adonis I thought he was phenomenal. but he's a Florida guy. Damian Fenrir is a Florida guy. There's a lot of those guys in Florida who are getting opportunities because of where they're filming. And when they were in Georgia, we saw a lot of guys from, Southeast Tennessee, and we saw a lot of people from, the Atlanta area, the Georgia area. And I feel like that's kind of what that makes sense. The person also pointed out that the locker room has changed quite significantly, and that there were a lot of veteran leadership, a lot of vets that were in that locker room back in 2021, and now they're not as many, or honestly, there's none. Trevor Murdoch was the last bastion from that era. Sure, Aaron Stevens is still there, but gone are Nick Aldis, gone are Matt Cardona, gone are Tyrus. Whether you liked him or not, he was considered a good person backstage by a lot of people. There's a lot of talent missing from the NWA from just a few years ago. So the locker room has changed. The veteran leadership has changed. Tom Latimer was one of the, I would never say the term like a young guy, because he was well established before coming to the NWA, but he was a newer face in the NWA, and now he's like the last seasoned veteran. Look back at the initial Power tapings; he's the only guy that's still there. Obviously the Pope has recently come back, and Mims is there. Mims is developing into one of the veterans, but again, the leadership in the locker room has changed significantly. And I'm not saying that that's going to change everything about the product, but it does have an impact. Do you agree, Jaden?
Yeah, I mean, veterans, when used correctly, and they're not there they're not either like bipolar, where sometimes they want to do everything they can to help the company, and then other times don't give a fuck and just are angry and bitter.
Yeah.
But yeah, if veterans do make a difference. There's a reason, again, Dr. Zirconian brings in Tank Tolan, and why he brought in other people that have been around for a while to work around, or even guys that are still around now but still getting, Richard Holiday. These guys have the ability to learn from these people, and if they're not taking advantage of it. But if you don't have that to even put out there, then you guys just have to learn from whatever they're out there. What I don't understand, though, is Florida should theoretically have an easier access to talent, because there's still a lot of people from NXT that are no longer in NXT or WWE who still live in Florida because of NXT.
Yeah, and I, again, that's a great point. And one of the things that DK and I were talking about just a little bit earlier today, and I don't know if I want to get into all of it right now, but like realistically, and don't say Alexander Hammerstone, don't say Richard Holiday, don't say Ben Bishop, but realistically, who's out there right now that could positively impact the NWA, who could be a good presence, who could be something bigger for the NWA? And I started thinking of like who makes sense. And I guess the first thing you could do is look at like the Boca Raton Championship Wrestling roster in Florida, or the CCW roster in Florida. Or there's quite a few promotions, right? Again, in Florida, that make a lot of sense. Like you start using some of those guys who have value. Caesar, I'm gonna butcher his name, Caesar Bonini, I think. He's the Brazilian
Caesar
wrestler. Bonini. He was in NXT. He was in AEW. He was part of the Wingmen with Peter Avalon and I can't remember the other guy's name. And he looks like $1 million. He's outside of wrestling, he's also a physical trainer, but he looks like $1 million. He's maybe not the best promo guy in the business, but he looks great, and he could have solid matches. And he actually really fits the demographic of what Billy Corgan looks for in a wrestler. And I imagine putting him and Aaron Stevens together would be like a license to print money. But how many guys are out there that could help the NWA grow? Because look at, and I'll get more into this when we talk about Power, but I was looking at the roster this week while I was watching Power and thinking like, this guy's never going to be a world heavyweight champion for the NWA. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's not a lot of Thrillbillies out there.
No, and Thrillbilly is the most significant diamond in the rough, the biggest, giantest zirconium in the rough that I don't think anyone saw coming. Of course, he's a natural. The guy is amazing on the microphone. I don't think there is another Thrillbilly out there in Joe Kazana Promotions or in St. Louis, Missouri, or Troy, Missouri, or in New Mexico, or in Texas. There might be some good guys, but as to what DK said earlier this evening, how many of those guys could be the next world's heavyweight champion?
Or even
DK, you're about to say something? Are you saying something, DK?
I said even within the next 3 years. I mean, I don't see anybody out there that's like, oh man, I could take 3 years and build this guy.
I think you could with Carson Drake. I think he's.
I don't. God, no.
I'm not a Carson Drake fan, but I think if under the right circumstances, he could be that guy.
I think with the right gimmick.
I think you need to change a lot about him to get him there.
We've kind of gone a long way since this was being talked about, but we're talking about season 1, and season 1 was good. And, really up until the pandemic, Power was pretty good. But I think we got to look at what was going on at that time. Who was in charge? Who was running things? Who was producing things? Stuff like that. Billy was always in charge and giving the directions, but they kind of got filtered through some people.
Sure.
And, Lagana, I suppose Marquez to a certain point. Certainly Jim Cornette was a bigger part of the first season than I think some people realize. But, you gotta. I see. Sorry, dog just came in and staring at me. The things, Billy, as the one guy pointed out, is a rock star. He's not a wrestling person. But the problem is he doesn't want to hire a wrestling person to actually book and put together stories. I mean, when you really think about it, all these skits are kind of just like carnelian from that they tried to do during the pandemic till Logano left.
You know what it reminds me of?
What?
The skits that happen on the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I don't even remember that, but I take your word for it. I mean, yeah, it's just like, what exactly? Why wouldn't I be nostalgic for old wrestling after watching Dr. Vic or whatever his name is, who I don't even watch? I fast forward as soon as anything that's not wrestling pops up. So the good news is I can get through an episode of Power pretty quickly.
I do think they had somebody that they did not take advantage of.
Who's that?
I think that could have been something in the NWA. I think they chose the wrong Exodus Pro wrestler. And I think Dante Casanova could have been built up to be something in the NWA. I do think there's talent out there that we're probably not thinking about, but I know there's some young talent that can make a big difference in the NWA. And there's some talent who's maybe had some chances elsewhere, but never really got a look. What's his name? Nick Camarado. He could be somebody that could be built up into the NWA, given a shot. He's got size, he's got talent, but I don't think anybody knew how to use him correctly, and I think he didn't have the right political friends to get to places he needed to be. But I think he could be somebody the NWA could use. Who else? And you know what? If anybody in the NWA I think has world championship potential, unfortunately has Mulkey Brothers booking sometimes, is AJ Kazena.
Oh man, that's a good one too. Okay, that's fair. That's actually really good.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to fast forward for most of the stuff these days because of crap booking. But yeah, you're right there. I mean, look, not that I advocate stealing talent.
I do.
But like, if there was some talent out there he could steal, no offense, Dave, but I'd probably steal Jordan Cruz.
You would steal Jordan Cruz. Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing. Dave Marquez would have zero problem with Jordan Cruz working for the National Wrestling Alliance. I think it's the other way around. I think the NWA would not want Jordan Cruz to work for the United Wrestling Network.
Oh, I know that. I mean, all you gotta do is look at what happened with Big Mama. So.
With who?
Big Mama.
Oh, well, and what's ironic about that, or maybe not ironic, but they used Slice Boogie for a short time, and then that kind of drifted apart. They used Jordan Clearwater, and it was pretty good for the NWA while it lasted. You know, Jordan Clearwater ended up leaving professional wrestling altogether. They also, Zicky Dice was an NWA guy.
Don't remind me.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm sorry. He was the United Wrestling Network guy first. And so for everything I'm trying to say is, none of that would stop the NWA. Excuse me, none of that would stop the United Wrestling Network. And I don't think they'd have a problem at all. You know, like somebody like the Wolf Daddies would be a really, really rough tag team to put into the NWA, where I don't think a lot of the tag teams would be able to keep up. I think the Kazanas could handle working with Che and Tito, and I know Mondo and Slade could, but like you throw those guys in the ring with somebody like Morton and Taylor, they're gonna eat them up. You throw them in the ring with somebody like no disrespect to Pope and Mims, but they don't have a slow speed. They're very intense in the ring. I don't think it would work, So that's just my 2 cents. Sorry.
So since I watched as much Power as I could in between breaks of classes, let's talk about NWA Power.
Yeah. Well, real quick, I want to go through the comments and then we'll get to Power, but I promise we will really, really good. Really, really quickly. Noob says there's a lot of talent in the NWA that are great on both the men's and women's division, and I hope that some of the talent will have bright futures when they leave the NWA soon. Oh, that's a message. Oh, yeah. Dave Scooby says maybe bring in Ben Bishop for a run against Silas, battle of the big men. But and my only thing about that is I think at this point Ben Bishop has outgrown the NWA. Like, it would be a payday for him. It wouldn't help him. It wouldn't elevate him. So I don't think he would necessarily be interested unless of course, the booking fees, right? Noob says, EC3 returned to TNA last weekend, and Valentina Rossi signed with the WWE as part of their ID program. I don't know how long will the rest of the NWA roster last. Luthez says, Power really has become wow with dudes. Speaking of women's wrestling, the NWA women's division is now comprised of the Page sisters, Nieves, Markova. The NWA needs to build up some younger talents like Livia. I mean, we saw that. They're trying. They had Livia come in, and it was a disqualification, but got a win against Nieves, and then had a pretty good showing against Marco. For somebody who was brand new to the NWA, who only had one match prior, she looked really good against Markova. Luthez says Bruce Hamilton versus Silas Mason could be the SY. The Stardust something good. I don't know who Bruce Hamilton is. Enlighten me, Lou, or at least send me a link later. And then
link later.
Hey, Art Linkletter? I don't know who that is. Going back just a little bit to the comment on the women's wrestling, that's almost funny as all three of the girls that were mentioned are all just still really young. I mean, the Page sisters are what, like 22 and 24,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
and so it's just interesting. You know, there's a difference between being young and being in there and experienced and stuff like that. But it's also an example of they don't seem to know what to do with the Page sisters at the moment.
Well, and I think that's why they keep the Page sisters what they're doing right now. They're not putting them into direct competition with the Hex. They're not going into competition with Tiffany Nieves, and they're not challenging Markova. Neither one of them. And I think they're doing that for a purpose, because I think that's what the next build will be. I think we're going to see probably Kylie go after the women's world title, and maybe Kenzie go after the TV title, which could have a big thing down the road. And then Luthes says, why did the NWA sign a tag team that looks like emancipated children? They are children. They literally just turned 18. So I guess they're technically adults, but yeah, don't know. And that was a Chicago territory. So that's a Corgan team. And, you know, again, that's another
question, doesn't it?
The idea that he has a territory in Chicago, like, that doesn't make sense to me. Why isn't it just Power in Chicago? I digress. All right, this week's episode is called Bury the Hatchet, episode number 254 for the lifetime of the NWA Power Series, season 26, episode 16. There was a segment in the beginning. I didn't see it, so we're gonna skip it. The next segment is Miss Star lets herself into Dr. Vic's Adobe, who's just throwing back the champagne still from the Tiffany Nieves birthday party like 3 months ago. Dr. Vic is in shambles because he got his heart broken, and Miss Star says, maybe it's time you start listening to me. Okay, I don't know where this is going. I don't really need to see Dr. Vic as a character further, but I kind of like the idea of Miss Star being this manipulator and managing more than just the women's television champion. Maybe she becomes a manager of champions in her own right. Then we get the first match of the night, the number 11 team of Tyler Frank and Trevor Murdoch versus the number 6 team, the Country Gentlemen. Early on, the Country Gentlemen were on the mic, and they were just talking about the number. They were talking about the number 6 seed and how they should have been ranked higher. And again, I think number 6 was more than adequate for them. The best part of this match was Trevor versus AJ. Trevor and AJ start slapping hands, and anybody else in that moment, I might have been like, wow, I'm surprised that they're being able to stand toe to toe with Trevor Murdoch. But AJ, it was like, no, I expect that from AJ Kazana. It's almost like that's exactly where he should be, is throwing hands with the biggest, baddest guys on the roster. And it made me think to, what Jaden said earlier, that's a guy that should be wrestling for the world's title. And as much as I know he wants to be successful as a tag team with his brother and carry that Kazana legacy for his papa and his grandpapa, maybe it's time for AJ to go on a solo run. Maybe it's time for AJ to take a look at being a singles wrestler, because, Casey Kazana is still a long ways away from becoming a top contender for anything in the NWA. But I don't think AJ is. I think AJ is almost there if he's not there already. And watching him go with Trevor made me realize that even more than I already knew. I would have liked to just seen those two guys go one-on-one. It's sad that Trevor retired, because I feel like that could have been a good feud to break AJ out as a solo act. The match came to a conclusion when Trevor was about to bulldog AJ from the top rope. Tyler Frank, who was pretty ineffective throughout the entire match, tagged himself in via a blind tag, and then for his trouble gets the Country Breakfast, which I guess is the new finisher for the Country Gentlemen, and the Gentlemen win and advance in the tournament. It was again, this Murdoch and Tyler were not supposed to go far in this tournament. This was probably the worst of the makeshift tag teams in the tournament, and kind of thought that the Country Gentlemen were going to advance anyways. But the matchup, Say that again?
Second worst.
Second worst. Okay. Oh yeah, Bones and Scion.
There we go.
Fair enough. Okay, but I still thought it was my favorite part of the match, and the only reason why I liked it at all was really seeing Trevor and AJ just going at it. I felt like that was like, ooh, that would have been so cool if they could have continued on that. What did you think of this one, DK?
I'll be honest, I wasn't really into any of the matches on this episode.
Okay.
I did enjoy the Murdoch AJ
exchange.
Yeah. That's kind of up my league there. I don't know. I didn't like the ending with the blind tag and stuff. It's just, I felt that was kind of as Jim Cornette might say, a hat on a hat type situation. They weren't a tag team. You should just be able to beat them. Somebody like the country gentleman should just be able to beat them without the young kid doing something stupid.
Yeah, but again, that's the 50-50 booking for the NWA, and I have more to say about that later. But did you have anything else you wanted to say, DK?
No.
Jaden, you see this one? What do you think?
I watched it. I liked, again, AJ versus Murdoch. I wish they would have brought in like a James Storm for Murdoch's partner.
Ooh, that would have been fantastic.
Yeah, I think he doesn't wrestle a lot, but he still does wrestle once in a while. So he would have been a perfect guest star for the Crockett Cup that maybe could have helped him draw in Texas too, because he does have a bit of a following.
Yeah.
So I think that could have been fun. Him and Murdoch, maybe it would have lit a little fire under Murdoch, and he wouldn't have retired after all. He would have gave him something. Maybe something, it's kind of like Patch had to wrestle Dave Duff so much that the Patch retired.
That's awesome.
That's probably what Trevor Murdoch went through, having to be stuck with this bad, god-awful partner and with being basically listless without Knox in his.
Yeah.
I think it's his decision to leave. So maybe, again, if they would have gave him something. But it was fine for what it was. Technically, Murdoch's feet were on the ground, and Franks wasn't holding the tag rope, and he didn't tag his hand. So by the actual rules of wrestling, that's not a tag, but whatever.
Well, we've seen worse in the NWA in terms of not adhering to the rules, so I'm not surprised by anything. Next up, we have a Southern Six promo. Morton says they're back on their winning ways. Taylor talks about beating the hard way. That sounded really inappropriate, and I apologize. Mason
He's not Jack and Eddie.
Mason says that Idol is already crying to Corgan about a rematch, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. That guy got every stipulation he wanted and still lost. I don't care if Carnage came out to interfere. That's his fault, man. You should have just asked for a straight-up match. Any interference, the title changes hand. What are we doing, Brian Idol? You genius? You're freaking Einstein? You're the one that asked for a match with no rules, and then when someone does something that would have broken the rules in any other match, you go and cry about it? Get to the back of the line, man. You're done. You don't need another title shot.
Reminds me when Blackjack Mulligan complained that Kevin Sullivan tried to hang him in a Hangman's Noose match.
I mean, it might as well been the same thing. It really, that irked me. And it's like, I know, I'm supposed to be rooting for Brian Idol. Brian Idol's supposed to be the babyface here, but he seems like a little bitch. And I don't use that term quite often, but that's what he seems like. Oh, I got cheated out of my match. Well, then don't ask for that match. Look, the storyline makes the wrestler look like a buffoon, or the wrestler's just a buffoon anyways. I don't know. But it doesn't. You're not endearing your babyface as a heroic champion if he gets what he wants and then cries about it. It's absolutely pathetic. Jesus.
You know what the best babyface stipulation request ever was?
What's that?
It was when for Brave Champions in '84, when Kerry Von Erich took over for David. The way it had been set was that if Mike Von Erich lasted 10 minutes with Ric Flair, then David got the title match and continued stipulations. And then, which happened, and then David passed before it could get announced. But the stipulations were no time limit, title changes hands on disqualification count. So basically, it was the babyface was saying, "I just want an even, straight up match."
Yeah. Give me a chance to win. That's all I'm asking for. Take away the distractions. Give me a straight up match where if I can pin your shoulders to the mat for 3 seconds, I'm the better man that night and I deserve the title. And if you pin my shoulders to the mat for 3 seconds, then you're the better man and you keep your title. And any interference causes the title to switch hands. That could have been, God, it's so frustrating because I'm not supposed to be I'm not supposed to be cheering for Silas Mason. He's the heel in this. I'm supposed to be booing this guy. But they're booking Brian Idol, a guy that I didn't like anyways, as the baby face, and I can't get behind cheering for the guy because he's a goof.
Maybe Noob should challenge Brian Idol and the winner gets Markova.
There you go.
Oh, that could work. I mean, that always makes me think back to the story you tell about Adam Pearce.
Say it again for the kids in the back.
It always reminds me of the story that you tell about Adam Pearce when he was watching a certain baby face do a promo.
Oh yeah.
And he says, "No, you're coming across whiny." I don't know if you used the bitch word or not, but basically you sound like you're whining. You don't sound like a baby face that seeking to rectify an injustice. You're kind of coming across as a crybaby. And I think this is something that the lack of probably having veteran leadership and true wrestling people involved, this is what you get.
For sure.
Like, by golly.
Then we get a Country Gentleman promo, which, again, who's directing this shit? Why are we bringing up the lawsuit with Billy Corgan again? Why are we going back there? Like, I thought we moved on from the goofiness and the stupid stuff, and I thought,
why did you think that?
Because they hadn't brought it up in a couple weeks. Like, we hadn't talked about it. We've seen the Country Gentleman on TV for every week now, whether it be in the tattoo parlor or at the party or something. We see the Country Gentleman, and we've had the Colonel talking about how he doesn't like the position that the guys have been in the Crockett Cup. We had plenty of reason to think that whole storyline was dropped and forgotten. But no, they bring it right back up again. And during the promo, and as much as I like Joe Kazana, man, he even butched it. He was like, you're trying to take money from my family. And, I don't know if that was a pause for effect or a pause because he forgot what he was trying to say. But, again, didn't make him look good. Didn't make the Country Gentleman look good. And then he says, when we win the Crockett Cup, we're going to paint it volunteer orange and put it down at the Tennessee Volunteer. I mean, come on, man. If anything, we're gonna ransom that trophy back to you, Billy Corgan. If you want it back, you're gonna drop that lawsuit. If we're gonna go with that storyline, go with it, but make it make sense. All right. Next up,
skits are like herpes. Unfortunately, as soon as you think you get rid of it, the rash just pops right back up.
I wouldn't know, man. I never had any anything like that. We get the number 10 team, the Slime Balls, your United States Tag Team Champions, taking on the number 7 team, Mims and Pope, a team that have won 0 tag team titles and last competed in the Crockett Cup in 2022. And again, we talk about the seeding of the card. Like, why do Mims and Pope get a higher seeding than reigning tag team champions? And the first thing I wrote here is the NWA needs to pull the trigger on a face push for the Slimers. It's time to get them away from Aaron Stevens, and it just like how the NWA fans love Wrecking Ball Legursky. Get him away from Jay Bradley. Get these guys away from Aaron Stevens. Let them be baby faces. Give the NWA fans what they want. Let them cheer these guys. They know how to work babyface. Make them babyface. This whole like weird gray area, like let's have the fans cheer them while simultaneously being the bad guys, just doesn't make wrestling sense. It doesn't make common sense. And again, when most of these stories are just good guys versus bad guys, the whole varying shades of gray is bullshit, man. At the end of the day, there needs to be someone who gets cheered and someone who gets booed. And don't leave it up to the fans in Florida. Freaking Florida. Don't let them decide who to cheer for and who to boo, who's going to be the face and who's going to be the heel. If that's the direction of the company, of course there's no person on top because you don't have any clear direction and creative. I digress. The fans love the Slime Balls. The Slime Balls are champions but are ranked lower in the seed, and that didn't make any sense to me either. The match itself was pretty okay. Like, look, the Pope and Mims, I think, could be a very interesting tag team if they were to team regularly. But again, they haven't really worked together very frequently. And I feel like the Pope is a bigger star working as a singles wrestler. I feel like Mims has more to contribute as a singles wrestler. So, again, the right team won here. The Slime Balls win when Pope and Mims are going for their version of the Doomsday Device. Sage is able to knock the Pope off the top rope. Tommy escapes from that seated position on top of Mims, and then they connect with that the snot rocket for the victory. It's a good win for the Slime Balls, but again, like both teams came in as ambiguous. Pope and Mims have been wrestling more as heels, but Pope is beloved in Florida. The Slime Balls wrestle as faces, but act as heels and are associated with heels. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But I would love to know, are we still on?
Yes. At least okay. I see you.
Well, I would love to know, Jaden, what did you think of this match?
It was fine. It was nothing special. It was okay. I think Mims needs to leave the NWA, maybe go to like Reality of Wrestling or somewhere to reinvent himself, maybe come back. But right now, I think he's just rudderless in the NWA, and they don't know what to do with him. He's just there, and he's just a member of the roster. He needs some freshening up, a new coat of paint, learn a new hold, something. Just go away for a while because the NWA doesn't know what to do with him. And I think Pope should be challenging Throwbilly. Built up, get a bunch of wins, challenge Throwbilly, have a promo contest, him and Throwbilly, and build up to a really big match, because right now the challengers that have fought for the World Heavyweight title, other than Cardona and Latimer, because being, former champions, but they're just not build up. They're not proper matches to make Throwbilly a bigger champion. And I think Pope can at least be that way. But again, it was fine. I like it's so weird for me to say this now. A couple years ago I wouldn't, but I like the Slime Balls a little bit. I can see where their money is on them.
Sure.
And I don't mind them as the baby faces if they were more baby faces teaming with the heels, because it worked with Rick Steiner. It kind of worked with Norman the Lunatic. It kind of worked with who was the big hillbilly in the NWA? I forget his name, but it was Paul Jones, Mighty Wilbur. Yeah, it kind of work with Mighty Wilbur. It can be done, if done right, it can make them bigger stars and bigger baby faces. But the problem is they half-ass it just like they do everything, and sometimes even forget about it, just like they do everything.
Yeah.
DK?
Hello, DK.
DK.
Sorry. Had mute
Very
on.
nice.
I had the mute on. I was mute. All right, what are we talking about? Huh? What? Tag team
Slime
match?
balls.
Slime balls.
Mims and Pope. What do you think?
Pope. Only Billy could screw up Pope as bad as he has the second time around. Jaden is right. Mims needs to go somewhere and learn a new goal. Or change his look. Maybe it's time to lose the dreads or something. I don't know. He needs to do something to freshen up and come back.
Maybe him and Carnage can both go away for a while and come back as a tag team without masks.
Yeah,
because they're both
strap a rocket to them.
Yeah, it's just something he needs to do. He needs some reinvention. And we kind of need to miss him a little bit. Although we don't see enough. In some ways, we don't see enough of him, but what we do see is not making us want to see more of him. And it's not him. I want to make that perfectly clear. This has nothing to do with him as the person or a wrestler. This has to do with the way he's being used. And I think we need to, again, Jaden was right. I hate saying things like that. But again, Jaden was right in saying that, you need to be building up for a throw building match. Oh my gosh, the promos alone. The way those two do promos, it screams, take my money. Slap my face and take my money.
If they ran Pope and Mims, if they ran Pope and Silas Mason at the OC Theater out there in Forney, Texas, DK, would you drive those couple hours? Would you book that hotel room?
Yeah, I would go see that. I would go see that.
I mean,
if the two of them were just doing a promo standoff for 15, 20 minutes, I'd probably go see that. That's the type of thing you need. You got to give me a reason.
Yeah.
What reason are you giving me? And I don't know. I still don't like the slime balls, but I'm willing to accept that they could get over as, spunky little baby faces and everything. And so why not use them to your advantage?
Yeah.
Well, what am I missing? Why?
Brain damage.
Well, that might be it. I don't understand why they don't use wrestlers to their advantage. I mean, give me a reason for them to be in the ring together. Give me a reason for them to, for me to believe that this is actually going to be a good match. Or an entertaining match. I mean, I think slime balls are a team that you could take advantage of. You could even get people with nostalgia poisoning interested in, because there were comedy wrestlers even back in the day. Ever watched Bugsy McGraw? And or Jimmy Valiant, or in Jim Crockett Promotions. You can be silly and get over if you have your right spot in the card. But I don't understand why they use them the way they do. I don't understand why they're using Pope the way they're using Pope. And I don't understand why they don't use Mims in a way that would get him over. Instead of, as Jaden says, get him under. In that way, this match almost made me sad. not Hunter.
There's money making potential. Yeah, there's money making potential in all four, but unfortunately, the only thing it's making is us cry.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. And, you know, not to stroke Jaden's ego any more than it needs to be stroked. I think, you know, what would Dr. Sarconium have Jaden, you know, do with these four? That would actually put them on a college campus, all four of them. I think you could have slime balls. They'd be so over, it'd be sad.
So with Pope, I think, and Mims have done right too. I think they could be done, but
Pope, just because of the way he talks, you could send Pope out there to talk for 5 minutes, and everybody would go. It was worth the time, or the money, or the whatever.
we're going to start a GoFundMe so Dr. Zirconium could actually, you know, hire all the good wrestlers from the NWA and create some kind of television and get it over and make them stars. So GoFundMe now. We're going to start it out. We're going to start with $20,000 per sponsor. So if you want to see these wrestlers become something, just donate to the GoFundMe.
For what it's worth, the drive from Clarksville, Tennessee to Houston is 12 hours, and it's significantly less to go to Louisville. So maybe maybe Mim should head up to Ohio Valley and get some seasoning. And I know we haven't been the biggest proponent of Ohio Valley, but maybe that would be a better spot for him to.
Why not both? If he wants to do the traveling, he wants to make it.
13 hours to Houston. That's a commitment.
When I was a wrestler, we traveled up to Maine and down to South Carolina, everywhere in between, and we would, it can be done. Florida's not that; it's a long ride too, and just to get from one to top of Texas to the bottom of Texas takes you a month and a half.
We all remember when our former co-host Kevin went coast to coast in a week.
That's true.
Yeah. It was on 3 different televisions within 2 weeks, if I remember.
Yeah.
One in West Virginia, one in on Fire, and one on California. Yeah. Hell, when DK was young, he used to have to go cross rivers and get dysentery to go anywhere.
Exactly.
What did Terry do to you?
I don't know, but he keeps dissing them.
Then next up, we get the Murdoch, Knox, and Frank's backstage segment, and Murdoch is like, "I've never been more embarrassed for you, Tyler Frank," and put the whole loss on it. Which, I mean, it was his fault. And Knox just kind of sat there and said, "I'm just so disappointed in you." And I very much felt like being spoken down to by a parent. I thought it was funny. I still don't like the tag team, and I wish they could have done anything besides Tyler Frank and Trevor Murdoch, but I digress. That was that, and this is this. Next up, we have Richard Adonis versus JAC. JAC is a guy we've seen multiple times now, and he has pretty average size and a pretty average build, and the most times when I see him, I think, what's stopping this guy from being like the next Thrubilly? And it's a total void
talent, charisma.
Yeah, that's right.
Ability.
A total void of charisma. He might not be a terrible wrestler. I haven't seen enough of him to make that observation yet. But, they brought in a guy, Richard Adonis, who is an Orlandonian. So, the drive to Tampa is not that bad. He's a former World Wrestling Network champion, which, I know that the World Wrestling Network used to be a little bit bigger back in the day, but still, it's a pretty significant position to have in the state of Florida. And he was a very nice mix of speed and ring savvy and like technical prowess. He hit a moonsault that was very clean. His build was pretty good. I'm not saying he's going to light the world on fire, and I don't think he's the next world's heavyweight champion, but I think this match was put together to make JAC look like a more credible athlete, not to put over Richard Adonis. And if it's the case that they meant to put over Richard Adonis, they did a fairly decent job. But if you're going to put him over, then he should have got the W. Because in the meantime, JAC ate a lot of offense from Adonis. and he didn't look dominant at all in this match. In fact, quite the opposite. JAC looked weak. He looked like he was not somebody that the NWA is heavily invested in. And it was very 50-50 off. It wasn't even 50-50 offense. I would say this match was predominantly Richard Adonis. And that's scary to me because we've seen JAC multiple times. They tried to make him into some kind of monster. They put him with Wrecking Ball Legursky to help him get over, and he took all the losses there, which is fine. I don't mind him taking the losses when it's Wrecking Ball Legursky, but at some point, either the slower mid-card guy needs to get a push to make him the victories that upper card talent have over him have to mean something. So if he's just eking his way into a victory, it doesn't mean anything when somebody with much superior talent beats him. So again, I want to cheer these guys on, and I want JAC to be a breakthrough babyface, but you're not going to get, DK asked, who's the guy that's going to be the next credible challenge for the world title? But you're not going to make somebody a credible challenge for the world title if you nickel and dime him on these matches. This should have been a blowout. And if you're not going to put Richard Adonis in a way that makes him look bad, then don't book Richard Adonis versus JAC. Book Richard Adonis versus Spencer Slade. Book Richard Adonis over Will Adams or whatever his name was last week, or Damian Fenrir. Put him in a match like that where he could excel and they could both look good. This match on paper looked like it was built to make JAC look like a bigger star, and it did anything but that. The finish of this match came when I didn't even write down the finish. That's how upset I was about it. JAC got the victory, but he shouldn't have. This match felt like it should have been putting JAC over. In reality, Richard Adonis looked better in the match. He should have just gotten the victory, and they could have put him, Adonis, into a match with Fenrir next week, and I would have been more excited about that. DK, what did you think about this match? Am I wrong? Am I questioning the way it was booked? DK, you're still muted.
I didn't understand what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
I was kind of scratching my head. And, yeah. I don't want to take too long since it's getting late.
Sure.
Like last week. But I don't know what they were trying to do, and it didn't make sense to me.
Thoughts, Jaden?
I didn't see it because I saw JAC was in the ring and I really didn't care. Based on your description, neither got over because now here is this dude doing all these moves and not able to win. It makes him look weak too. It gets both of them under. And it just sounds... Who was the agent in this match to help put it together? Do they have agents?
I mean,
it just sounds like it was bad decisions all the way around.
Yeah, it was not, again, not the best booked match I've seen. We'll move on to the next part. It was back at the tattoo parlor. One of the funny things is you've got the Southern Six talking about, hey, the line to get a tattoo is too long, and there's 2-for-1 shots next door. And Alex Taylor says something about Irish car bombs, and Silas goes, "What are you, part of the IRA?" Which made me laugh, being Irish myself. And as they were continuing to discuss things, Kerry goes, "Country gentlemen been getting tattoos for 4 months now, or for 4 weeks now, because they've been in the AJ Kazan has been in that tattoo chair for every episode of this season of Power." So that was kind of funny. Tiffany Nieves starts telling Silas Mason what he's going to get tattooed, and I think she said Petador, which is loser. And he said, "I want to get champion tattooed on my arm, like in some Chinese or Japanese writing." And she goes, "Oh, you should get Petador. That means champion in Spanish. No, that means loser." Beck taught me that back in 1994. I dare to remind you. So anyways, that was a stupid segment because, again, all of a sudden we got Tiffany Nieves and Silas Mason locked at the hip, and I don't understand that dynamic either. Just because you're the world champion. Like, I didn't see Tiffany Nieves locked hip and hip with Tom Latimer or EC. Well, Okay, maybe EC3, but I digress. Then we get the backstage promo with Idol, and he's getting all worked up. He's already asked Billy for a rematch because he wasn't fair that Carnage interfered in his no limits match. Like boo hoo hoo, Brian Idol. Get over it. So over that guy. And then he has William Patrick Corgan has already agreed to give him a rematch, but he'll put that clause on the line against Carnage in a no limits match. And what I would absolutely love to see is the Southern Six and Thrillbilly Silas Mason interfere and giving Carnage the victory, thus screwing Brian Idol twice. Then we get our next match. It's the number 8 seed Drake and Stevens, as it was advertised, against the number 9 seed Latimer and Nihan, and the number 8 seed. We're thinking it's going to be Aaron Stevens and Carson Drake. Turns out it's Carson Drake and Tyler Stevens, also known affectionately as The Wall. But before that match starts, then we get Samantha Starr. She's trying to talk up Vic into challenging for the 10 pounds of gold, where you see Samantha Starr, Miss Starr, being very manipulative. And again, this could be an interesting character turn for her if she's going to start managing more than just Greta and Tiffany Nieves. Maybe she becomes a manager of champions in her own right, although Vic is not the right guy. Then you got Pope and Mims trying to figure out why they didn't win, and they were both just very upset with the fact that the Slime Balls got the victory. And then this was a roundabout way to introduce what looks like another new mask tag team, The Light, which is the Pope's new guys, I guess. You remember the Pope all along was looking to start his new Full Horsemen, so perhaps maybe these two members will round out his new group. If I have to guess, one of them is definitely what's that guy's name? He was in the Von Erich movie. He played Michael P.S. Hayes. Brady Pierce. I'm sure one of the guys is Brady Pierce. Okay, that takes us to the main event. We get Tyler Stevens and Carson Drake versus Nihan and Tom Latimer. And again, I don't want to break down the entire match. The one thing I kept thinking is there's something missing from Carson Drake. I know they want him to be thought of as a world champion, but he hasn't had that real serious rivalry yet. Somebody to push him to the next level. And he's in the ring with Tom Latimer. And all I can keep thinking is if they were to put them into a real program, get rid of the nonsense with the Federation of Champions and without having Mondo and Slade and the Slime Balls and Lockjaw and all these guys around the ring corner, if it's just Aaron Stevens, Carson Drake in the ring with Tom Latimer, I really think you could build Carson Drake into something more than what he is now. And again, being in the ring with somebody like Tom Latimer, who is a former world champion, not just in the NWA, but having been a champion in multiple promotions across the world, you could really do something here. And if I can still turn from the kids or build somebody, I feel like that would be the best direction to put Carson Drake before putting him in a match with Thrillbilly Silas Mason. If the end game for Billy Corgan and the booking committee is Carson Drake holds that 10 pounds of gold, I think an extended storyline with Tom Latimer where they both try to get the best of one another would be a really good way to take Carson Drake to that next level. The match actually surprised me because I thought for sure Drake and the Wall were going to win this one, but Latimer and Nihan won, which I guess it shouldn't be an upset, but it just kind of felt like an upset to me. It was I didn't love the match, but it was Tyler Stevens and El Dragon Nihan went back and forth, and El Dragon is a big man, and the Wall isn't that big, so for them to go back and forth the way they did, kind of, I don't know, it seemed hokey. Does that make sense, Jaden? Did it look hokey to you, or did you see this one?
I did watch it. First of all, if you're wondering what Carson Drake's missing, I would start with Beta Alanine.
Fair.
And also, I'd like to know what this sickness did to you, because apparently it completely altered your brain chemistry to where you could think that Carson Drake can be a future world's champion and built up to be look like that.
I don't want him to be. I feel like that's the direction the NWA is going. It's not
Yeah.
something I am pushing for. It's something that, all right, well, if it's going to happen, let's make the best of it.
It shouldn't happen. He's fine for his role, but honestly, his next feud should be with a wood chipper. It just, yeah, it was okay. Dragon Nihon's too slow. He's got a lot of aesthetics. He's got a look. He could be something, but he's got to work on his speed, because he has like one speed and it's slow, maybe two, slow and stop.
Sure.
Latimer looked actually pretty good. He looked like he lost some weight a little bit, but he was moving a lot better. So maybe, whatever injury he had, he's starting to recover from. I actually kind of like his new haircut because it makes him look younger.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah, he looked younger in the face. He looked healthier. He looked more mobile. He looked like maybe he can get another shot. He's been national champion. He's been TV champion. He's been tag team champion. He's been world heavyweight champion. Not much for him to accomplish right now. So what he can do now instead is start from the bottom and work his way with all the talent working their way up. And if he doesn't, beat them, as long as they look competitive, they could be used to build some talent up, and then use them as a sporadic challenger for the World's Championship or something like that. Or maybe the match I really want to see Latimer against is Mike Mondo.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would be building him up for a Mike Mondo Latimer match. I think that would be a lot of fun. And that could be, maybe get Mondo ready for Silas Mason in the future. But Drake should be feuding with Brian Idol, and some of the cards around that area, but maybe kept out of the world title picture. I just, there's no interest at all for me to see him against Throwbilly. But the match was all right. It was nothing special. It had moments, and then there's something you could see. Some of the wrestlers, 3 out of the 4 wrestlers, maybe even all of 4, they had moments here and there we could see something. But I think the only one that looked decent was Latimer in this whole match. DK?
What to say? Who won this match again?
Latimer and Nihon.
Yeah, and who cares?
Well, it has Crockett Cup.
Latimer and Nihon care, I guess. And Stevens and whatever his name is care. I don't know that anybody else cares. Maybe the third worst thrown together team.
Which one?
Yeah.
I just didn't care about it. I mean, at the end of it, I was just like, yeah, whatever.
One of the things that bothers me a little bit, and I actually, DK just brought it up, I wanted to say it earlier. Even though this is for the Crockett Cup, none of these matches feel they have consequences. None of these matches feel like they have importance. None of these matches feel like they have anything that's going to have anything. It reminds me of like the WCW worldwide tapings when they were in later, even past the ones where at least they were trying to put championship matches on that meant something. It just felt like the way in Florida, where all the big stars wrestled the first day, and then they brought in everybody else to wrestle all the other days, and none of the matches really meant anything. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. And so that leaves us with a Crockett Cup. At least I don't think there'll be any more play-in matches on Power unless they're part of the 16 seed qualification. But we looks like we'll see the Slime Balls taking on the Good Brothers. In second round action, we'll see the Colognes taking on the Country Gentlemen. We'll see the Wrestling Machines taking on the Southern Six. And then we'll see Latimer and Nihon taking on the winners between the Immortals, who are the number 1 seed, and the number 16 seed, which we have no idea who that's going to be. So that's this week's Power, and that's pretty much all there is to talk about as far as the NWA. There are a television taping coming up at the end of the month. April 24th, I believe, is when that date is. It's a 2-day event. They're doing a training, scouting type event in between the Power episodes, so we might see some new faces on that next set of tapings. And I know a couple of talents have reached out and they're excited about it, so hopefully we'll have some good new faces on the next season of Power. But that's going to do it as far as our NWA talk. Now I will give the floor to you, gentlemen, to promote. Of course, we have some more matches that have been announced for IHWE, and there's also an event coming up to Little Egg Harbor in New Jersey. I'd like to give you guys both an opportunity to speak about that. So we'll first go with Jaden, because last DKM had the floor first. So Jaden, tell us about what's coming up at Little Egg Harbor.
Well, before that, we have the Rowan College of Burlington County. There'll be a Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators Heavyweight Championship match with Vinny the Fixer defending against former World Wrestling Grand Prix Heavyweight Champion, the Incredible Huck William Huckabee.
All right. I didn't know that was coming. That's a good one.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. Then there is also Richard Holiday will be in action. So will Ant Bennett. You might have saw him in the Cruiserweight Classic. He's making his return. The Dog, I believe Marvelous is scheduled, but I know he's a little injured. The Dog Tag Team Championship will be on the line with Primal Fear defending against High Fashion. So there's great wrestling action all the way down. Wrestlers also on the card is Connor Schaefer, Dylan Mesh, Nick Botti. So great wrestling all the way up and down that card. You're going to see that for Rowan College of Burlington County. Then if the two champions are still champions afterwards, the winner of the Vinny the Fixer versus William Huckabee match will take on Tank Tolan at the Little Egg Harbor, New Jersey, at the Pinelands Regional High School. Former WWC superstar Tank Tolan will get the Next Dog Championship match. Also on the card, Fala Ba will be teaming with local indie wrestler Stife, who's from that area, to take on Dylan Mesh and Connor Schaefer. Plus, the Dog Tag Team Championship will be on the line. The winner of the High Fashion versus Primal Fear match will take on. It'll be a against the Shot Callers and I can't think of the other team's name now. I just had it. I'm sorry, brain damage right now. I apologize. I'm exhausted from school, but it'll be the Shot Callers and I can't think of the other team, but they're going to be a match for the Tag Team Championship. Plus, you're also going to see others, Dog, like Nick Botti and Marvelous is supposed to be there. And the main event is going to be the homecoming, the alumni of Pinelands Regional High School, Ty Thomas, taking on a guy he's never beaten. He's never beaten again, and he wrestled multiple times, especially in Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators, and that's the Spartan Pitbull Nikos Rikos. Yes. That's a grudge match that's been going on for years, and Ty's now in his hometown, in his old high school, and he's never beaten Nikos Rikos, and Nikos Rikos wants to spoil his homecoming. So that's a big match that's going to happen on that card too. So lots of great wrestling action. More coming up. We'll make some announcements soon. But I'm looking forward to those matches, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And DK, what's coming on in IHWE?
What's coming on IHWE? How could you even ask such a question? Obviously, the biggest thing ever is coming on with IHWE. May 23rd in the Burleson Recreation Center in Burleson, Texas, just south of Fort Worth on 35. Saturday night, bell time at 5 o'clock. The return takes place after 3 years. After 3 years of inactivity, IHWE returns. We've already announced previously here on the show two matches. announce the opening match of our for junior heavyweights. We have Prince Alexander versus John Doe. In the main event, we have King Sims versus the Diamond in the Rough, Devontae James. Two big men. One's 240, King Sims. James is 330. So my heavyweights are heavyweights, let me tell you, apparently. And then announced this week, on Monday, we announced for the vacant women's championship, the Mistress of Metal, Victoria Mosh, will take on Hilda La Munza.
That's not La Muñeca?
It is.
Okay.
I was waiting for Jaden to say something.
Sorry.
Well, I was waiting for you to throw some extra N's in there. I don't know Spanish as well as I know Japanese either, so
Yeah, so
I figured if anybody knows about Spanish women, it would be Jay, because he likes to have them clean his house.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That is true. He helps the Mexican economy going by paying the Mexican cleaning. And then also we have a special challenge match where we'll see the Wicked Tiger Brandon Strikes, junior heavyweight who so desperately wanted to be on the show. He said he would face anybody. And lo and behold, if I wasn't having problems finding somebody to wrestle the Vanilla Gorilla Justin James, 300-pound man who's ready to knock you out. And so, like I said, he was willing to take the match. It's a special challenge match. It's outside of the weight classes, something I won't normally do, but in this particular case, it's happening. So that will be interesting to see. There is one more match to be announced. It will be announced tomorrow. So you can check it out on our Facebook, our website, ihwetx.com. I also post to Instagram and that cesspool that we call X.
So real quick, I just want to point something out here, because a lot of people say, Jay, you look like Kevin Owens. And I like to think I look like the small Kevin Owens, right? Because I'm not as big as Kevin Owens. But if I'm the small Kevin Owens and Kevin Owens is Kevin Owens, Justin James looks like the big Kevin Owens.
There is some truth to that. There is a little lighter hair, but let me tell you, that's somebody I would not want to be in the ring with. But, we got a battle of beasts going on here. We got a tiger versus a gorilla.
You remember the show on the History Channel where they used to have two animals and they make scientific, like, who would win against each other?
Yeah. Apparently we're going to find out on this one.
Well, Kingdom Deathmatch or something.
Hey. The first time that match, but that will be something to consider for the future.
Are tickets currently on sale?
Tickets will go on sale once I get the website running right. Tickets will go on sale April 23rd.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. Again, this is the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance, the United Wrestling Network, the IHWE, and Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. We do it all right here at alliance-wrestling.com. Make sure you visit the website and check it frequently. We like to update with show results. And of course, we do interviews, podcasts, live streams, all available at the Alliance blog. You follow us on all social media at the Alliance blog. And if you enjoy what you heard tonight, hey, why don't you subscribe? It certainly helps us get the word out there for all these independent wrestling promotions and helps us reach a greater audience. If you want to financially support the Alliance blog, there are links in our bio for merchandise like t-shirts, ball caps, and all kinds of cool things, coffee mugs, or you can even purchase yourself some Dubby. And that actually helps too, but make sure you use the Alliance blog code. But that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, we'll see you at the matches. Good night.
Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at the Alliance blog. And until next time, we are the